Unrealism.
We're live, Jason.
We're live. A day late, but
Oh,
we're here.
you son of a bitch. I haven't heard from you in a week. I
The
missed you.
world hasn't heard for you in a week.
You're the apple of my eye, Jason. I thought of you in my meditations.
Aw, dude, how was it? I think there's a lot, and you just got to spill the beans. Tell me how it was.
It was tough. For people that don't know, I haven't spoken in a week. So this feels good. I did a silent meditation for 7 days, and I quit basically all dopamine that I could. My phone was completely off in my closet for a week. Didn't drink coffee, no liquor. I basically ate really, really clean food, meditated for up to 2 hours a day, and painted and wrote in my journal. That's all. No talking, no nothing.
Okay, let's start just like brass tacks. Good experience, or just rate it. Rate your experience out of 10.
Fucking zero, man. It sucked for most of it.
Okay, interesting.
But day 7 is when, probably day 6, 7 is when it started getting good. And I started realizing the benefits of it, you know? I had a friend, I told my experience to my friend already. And he's like, man, I really want to do that. I need that in my life, but I only have 2-3 days. You can't do it for 2-3 days. This isn't even a 7-day. A silent retreat, I think, should be at least 10 days to 2 weeks. I mentioned on the last podcast that Yuval Harari does 2 months of silent meditation. And I think that's where the juice starts to flow. On the 6th, 7th day, I really started just scratching the surface of what this can do for your psyche and for your creativity and just focus.
That's like you go through something and 80% of it is like not that beneficial, I guess. Well, that's like the 80-20 rule just keeps popping up. You're going to spend 6 days and not really feel it, but on your last day and a bit, you start feeling, well, like, how come you didn't decide to extend it another week?
Just, man, like willpower, very little willpower. I was just like, I kept inching towards, because it's difficult, right? You're completely disconnected. It's difficult to, man, like I ran out of art supplies. So I had to leave my place, and I went to the art store. I didn't talk. I wrote on a note what I needed, and I passed it to the cashier. I actually went to 2 art stores. One of them, they were like kind of rude to me, and I felt bad for anyone with a disability in that point, you know, because I came in, I wrote on a note like, "Hi, I'm looking for these colors in spray paint," and this is like an old record shop that has like a massive wall of spray paint in downtown Vancouver. And I wrote like pale yellow and off-white and then I had a really obscure color called cocktail. And this guy, dude, he looks at the list, and this is in the middle afternoon. There's not a single person in the store. And he lets off one of these, and he looks at his buddy at the store and he's like, "Hey, fuck, I got to deal with this guy now," you know? Like I can feel the energy between the two of them.
Yeah.
And I'm like, damn, like that, you know, if you're a mute, like you probably go through a lot of these assholes, right? That's just like a 5-minute experience out of my 7 weeks, but it stood out to me for some reason. Felt bad.
No,
but
it's a interesting perspective. Not a lot of people can even will ever experience.
Yeah, I thought, look,
right?
like, why don't you just talk and like make this guy?
No,
It's out of principle. But yeah, I gotta say, man, like especially the first 3 days were very. I wanted to quit. On day 3, I grabbed my phone and I'm like, just quit. Fuck this. Why are you doing this? There's no point. You're not that productive right now. I thought my productivity would be heightened. It wasn't.
Okay.
On day 3, I was just frustrated. I was pulling the hair out of my skull, and I'm like, I don't need this. let me pour myself a cocktail and paint like I always do. And
Okay.
that day exposed that I had some limiting beliefs in my art practice.
Okay,
And
okay.
because I've attached and romanticized about, the old school painters who are like smoking cigarettes and drinking whiskey, and creating these masterpieces, right? And I thought to myself, perhaps unconsciously, that I have to have a couple drinks and be a little bit loose in order to paint something worthwhile, right? And of course, on this journey, I wasn't drinking at all. I wasn't doing anything to stimulate myself. Um, and so the limiting belief was uncovered. Now I have to face painting something good sober. And I was working on two really important commissions in that week that I was like a little stressed about. I want to make them perfect. And so that was revealed, and that was a big takeaway, was the limiting beliefs that were kind of peppered throughout my psyche, right? And so I would meditate on them. I would reverse the belief, right? So if I believed that alcohol makes me a good painter, right? I'd spend like 10 minutes literally meditating on that, um, and saying, positive affirmations to myself, right? And so, I mean, I had 2 hours of meditation a day for most of the week. So, so I could allocate a lot of time towards a single thought, right? But day three, I was about to quit. First day, you're marching in like a pumped up soldier. You're like, I'm gonna fucking rip through this. I'm gonna do it. Day two, you're like, you still have a little bit of that energy. It's still a little bit new, and you're like, you feel kind of cool and spiritual. And then it just all comes crashing down. And I went to sleep at like 8 p.m. that night because I just couldn't take it. I'm like, my paintings suck. I can't think. And then finally, on day four, I woke up with just like a air of confidence, and I meditated longer that day, and I realized that everything that you create around yourself is just all in your mind. I was frustrated, and I didn't get myself out of that funk when I could have. And when I realized that, like, I can just, Boris, you're gonna be fucking awesome today at your paintings. You're gonna fucking crush it. You're gonna be peaceful. You're gonna be all this. I reaffirmed it all in my mind in my morning meditation. Right, I spent 40 minutes on it. The rest of my day I fucking killed it that day. I painted like a monster, and I felt awesome. I cooked great meals. I had a smile on my face. I was like, if the rest of the week's like this, easy. And it was. From that day on, it was, because it might sound like a cliche, but everything around you, your reality, is a reflection of your mind. And your mind is all in your control. It's just up to you to control it. Get off your fucking phone. Start thinking about what you want your reality to look like. And if you think on it constantly, if you put actual pressure on, I want fucking $10 million. I want this and this in my life. I want love. It fucking comes. You know what I mean? So that was a big realization. And I mean it. Sure, I didn't make $1 million on the 7 day journey, but the little micro changes show you how real things can become just from the power of your mind.
Okay, yeah, because as somebody who's never tried an activity like that for actually even more than like a day, um, I'm seeing it as you're letting the dust settle, in your life. You're taking out all the stimulations, and what's kind of left when you take out stimuli, or you take out dopamine and you take out those things. I'm thinking it's exactly what you experienced. You flatlined, and all those, self-limiting beliefs or things that got in your way, those manifested. And it sounds like because you had a process for dealing with those self-limiting beliefs, such as the drinking and the romanticizing, like, the drinking and smoking or whatnot, you were able to meditate on them. So, you had a good process. It's like, hey, these are things that I should kind of channel a little deeper and understand more. Let's meditate on them. And then you realize that the outcome was you don't need all those things, right? So it seems like, the dust settled, all these negative things came and unearthed themselves. You found a way to deal with them. And then now on the other side of this week-long journey, do you feel like you built habits that you're going to sustain forever, or was this just kind of a little mental vacation?
It was both. I made a long list of things that I'm going to carry through with the momentum that I have, and with the knowledge of how good some of these practices are for me. For example, consistent morning and night meditation, crucial for me, right? Because I've realized that silence is really important. I mean, I didn't play music the entire week, and I'm an addict I eat music from the morning to night. I wake up to classical and I go to sleep with like heavy metal or like heavy trance or something. You know what I mean? It just keeps getting. I need a bigger kick, and I listen to everything. So without music, I kind of drove myself crazy as well. You start hearing songs in your head, like I kept hearing your songs sometimes. But I realized that as soon as you quiet your mind and you quiet your surroundings, suddenly things get really loud inside. You really start. That's when you quiet everything. That's when you start hearing the important shit. You know what I mean? You silence. The stimuli, you silence the outside noise, and the voice inside you start hearing it, right? And that's the most fucking meaningful shit ever, because you hear your unconscious. You actually, like, I thought about this. If I ever had a really important life decision to make or business decision, fuck, I'm gonna go quiet for a week again, because I think I would make the most soundest decision ever. I started realizing what I truly feel. I started having, but by the way, the other thing is I started having crazy vivid dreams, 6 nights in a row. First night I didn't have, but the rest of the nights I woke up like I just saw a movie, and I had to write down all these dreams, and most of them, believe it or not, were like correlated to the type of day I had. It was fucked. I don't want to go into all the dreams, but that part of it was nuts. And in the daytime, I'd have a vivid imagination. I'd see crazy shit. I have crazy daydreams, and my thoughts were just crisp. Like I would hear myself, right? And that's when I really started learning a lot about myself. I started imagining like more, more of my aspirations. I started like really getting in touch with my feelings and so on. Yeah, it was a weird one.
It's funny getting you talking and getting you going about the experience. You started off by saying it sucked. Yeah, I'm sure it didn't feel good because it was such a drastic change from everyday life. But all the benefits or all the spiritual awakenings you experienced, they sound awesome. Like they sound like they're all positive in some regard.
Definitely. It was really positive. It was really positive. And
okay, so I think
well, at the end of it,
I think we can say that at the end of course. So you, of course, like, you're doing a tough workout. In the middle of it, you want to quit, and you're like, why am I doing this? Like, why am I putting my body through stress? But you don't look at the results until the end of the workout, right? Or any sort of challenge. So you did have a great experience, but it was just it was a tough one. Like it was worth it, right?
Yeah, coming out of that tunnel, of course, you feel accomplished. It's something I've always wanted to do, and
Yeah.
I want to do like a more authentic silence retreat. I guess I don't know if authentic's the right word, but I'd love to do like an actual retreat, and I'd love to do one a little bit longer because I think the benefits would really start coming out closer to 10 days, you know. Um, but I felt. Here's the other thing. Here's the other interesting thing is I feel like we get completely paralyzed and numb from all the stimuli coming in, all the alcohol and everything people smoke and social media, our phone. It's just constant stimuli all the time, right? Um, our social needs are met somewhat on our phone. Our sexual needs are everything. Like you can fulfill most needs sitting at home. I can order my Uber Eats. I can play loud music. I can order anything and it'll come to my door, or I could have it on my phone digitally. I could put a VR headset. I could fulfill all my desires sitting in this fucking chair, right? Digitally, not in like a fully real way, correct? And so you kind of, I felt just how numb I have become, you know? So I went on a walk on one of the days, I think on day 5, right? I'm living in downtown Vancouver, so there's lots of lights, lots of noises, people, right? Lots of stimuli. And I've been sitting at home for 4 or 5 days. So human chatter became like fucking alien noises to me, right? All the lights and like buildings were like, whoa. I felt like I was in Vegas. You know that feeling when you first enter the strip, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I walked up to the water and I saw the four sails and in the harbor, the shipyard, and I was like, "Fuck, this is magnificent. This is so amazing to look at." And I couldn't stand there for more than a minute. I'm serious. You know, like it was just that like mesmerizing, right? When you have nothing coming in for 5 days, and then you see like a beautiful scene and you hear chatter. I went home like that was a 20-minute walk for me, right? And so I realized that we're just fucking grinded down and numb by the everyday things of our current lives of modern society, and we don't get the full experience of life because of the digital world, you know. Do you see what I'm saying, or am I full of cliches there?
No, actually, you're joining the chorus of what a lot of people have been warning humanity for a while. It's been that way like since Disney or Pixar. I think it was Pixar. Pixar came out with Wall-E. It's like the the caricature of the future human race in a reclining sofa that has wheels, and you've just got your iPad in front of you. You've got your smoothie with like the best tasting food or drink, whatever, just going straight into your mouth, and you're just like sitting there like, I don't need anything. I got my quote unquote nutrients, and I got my entertainment or stimuli,
Yes.
and nothing else matters. And we're slowly getting to that point. If you look at just in the past decade, like we probably as like the Western civilization, we spend more time indoors, like in our chairs, probably, and we spend more times on our phones. Like the statistics are all there. And with this whole COVID thing, it's probably shown us, it's accelerated that. Not
Yes.
only is shopping, accelerated online, but it's also the habits that we've formed, staying in and finding entertainment indoors. It's shifted things a bit. Like, sure, there's going to be another swing to the other side of the spectrum. People are going to want to go out a lot more once the vaccines roll out and everything. But realizing that, yeah, as humans, we can satiate a lot of our desires through stimuli on demand. We don't know how to handle it. Like we're not. We're getting number as a whole. We're all getting number, which is something I want to ask you. So this has always been interesting to me. People loved moving to New York, or the idea of moving to a big city let's say people from Vancouver, they want to move to the East Coast with the understanding that things are faster paced, right? That's like that's common folklore. That's common, like, just group thinking that, hey, the East Coast, they do things differently. They're go, 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 go. If you make in New York, you can make anywhere. Toronto's mini New York, whatever. And then if you're on the West Coast, you're kind of slower. People handle things differently. And it's true, like, evidently so. Like, people think differently here. They conduct business differently. The amount of work-life balance is like way skewed more towards life on the West Coast. However, if you look at these East Coast cities where it's more work, 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 they're chaotic. Like, they thrive, and they actually are attracted to numbing themselves even further for the sake of improving their success. People in Asia, it's like, you want to be in the hustle and bustle. You want to put yourself in situations where you're just stimulated by everything and anything. And then you kind of just, like, through all that bullshit, you see people rise to the top who can handle the most bullshit and have their hands in so many different pots. And then on the other side of things, you have people who are like, yeah, let's cut all that stuff out. But I no longer can be competitive in such a crazy world anymore. Sorry, so long-winded question, but basically, what do you think about, like, the state of the world where it's also chaotic, and if you play and you play into the chaos, you can find success being in that chaotic realm. And of course, if you take a different approach where you're more like West Coast relaxed, it's going to be harder to penetrate that market where everything's really chaotic.
I think it depends on the industry you're in, but I see a lot of benefit in being in the chaos if you're a young, hungry, really ambitious guy or girl who just want to, like, destroy in finance or whatever industry, but some industries demand that you live, in like, the busyness of Hollywood or like the finance district of New York, right? But I found, I mean, you and I lived in Toronto for 6 months. I lived in New York for, I don't know, on and off, like 6+ months. And I always, New York, just, I loved it at first, right? It's the art capital, so you feel fucking awesome there. But you get winded down, man. I would come back to Vancouver and just feel like I would resent humans, man, because you're just trapped in the subway with 1,000 people, like a sardine in a can, and you're grinded down. You're completely grinded down. But if I had a gallery down there, in Chelsea, then fuck, I would take that. I would live there because the business would be nuts, right? But the thing is this is the common sort of route for people. Let's say for what humans would define as a successful person. You move to the big city, you live in the downtown core, you live in the bustle until you kind of get grinded down by it, and then you retire at 60 and move to a fucking forest or a beach where it's quiet and you don't have to fucking listen to any of it because you get tired of that shit, right? That's the common trajectory.
It's the gulag.
It's
You
the
enter
gulag.
it, and then it's the gladiator dome, Coliseum.
Yeah, but see, like, I don't know. To me, what's life if I just at 20 years old move to the forest and do fuck all there, you know? Um, I don't know. I don't know what your question fully was, and I don't know what the answer is
To
to
be
that.
honest, I'm having kind of a brain fart, brain fart of a Monday. But if
I
I
think
wasn't unclear, I was kind of just trying to, like, get some conversation going about, um, as a big picture, the world is moving into that, like, as a whole, we're all getting more numb. And do
yes,
we lean into the fact that, we're evolving as a race, as a species, and this is the direction we're evolving to, and it's just never going to be what it was like before, you know?
for
And
sure.
if you find a way to carve out a little space in the universe where you're living like the Amish, because in comparison, how you're living was like the Amish, less the fact that you have electricity and you're still cooking on a flat top or
And
whatever.
then I'm Jewish.
Yeah, yeah. But I'm just saying, like, there are people who have abolished the idea of, future and technology, and they realize that we can sustain life living like the Amish. Um, it's all going to help you be more competitive in the, I guess, the general humanity. That's what I'm trying to say. And how do you lean into it? Because what you said about, like, yeah, enter the workforce, fucking sell your soul to success for 20, 30, 40 years, whatever you can hold on to, and then regress or go back into like a nice little cave where you only care about your family. That's like white picket fence. That's just, it's just so common. And
Yes.
it's a big criticism of Western thinking. And I think a lot of like people who might have more like spiritual awakenings or things like that, they see that, your life is nothing but chasing goals and then realizing that you don't need those goals.
Yes. Yes. Can
And that
you?
you outgrow them. It's like it's pretty funny. It's I was listening to a podcast yesterday, and there was a story about going to a market, and when you're a little kid, you're with your mom or something like that. You go to the market and you see a book that you really like, and it's a children's book, and for whatever reason, like, you're just so attached to it and you need to have it, but for some reason your parents don't buy it for you. Fast forward 10 years, you go to the same market and you see the same book, but you don't have those same emotions, right? But
Mhm.
you feel that you once wanted those things or wanted that book, but you've outgrown it. I feel like life is a series of desires that you will one day outgrow. And
Yeah.
I'm still processing what I heard yesterday, and I'm still processing that in life because I actually had a friend tell me this when we were younger too, and um, we are just debating what we spend our time on, like what our interests are, and what we used to do, and we were always just reminiscing about the past. And when you have those conversations with somebody you grew up with, a lot of the times it goes back to, damn, we were so stupid back then. That's like the common theme. It's like you think about all those funny things that you would probably never ever do again. You know, because one of the things that we did a lot in high school we did a lot of pranks. We were like hooligans, and we would like do things that were just like just bad. We were like mischievous. We caused a lot of mischief in our community, right?
Hmm.
And we think back on those times, and we're just like, fuck, that was so much fun. Like, it brought us so much joy to be little rascals and degenerates. But to think back, would we ever do those things, like pull pranks, like when we were in high school? Like, would we ever do those things again? Like, no, we've outgrown them. But in that time, they were the most. There's it's what you do. It's like you go to school, you finish your chores on the weekends, you just ride around on your bike and you just fuck shit up.
Ding
Like,
dong ditch.
right? Exactly. Like, look, those little things. But when you're a 40-year-old, like, you don't, you'll never resonate with that ever again. Unless, like, on a higher level you might, but it's very rare. Unless you're like Jackass and Steve-O. Even those guys outgrow, the pranks. And if you look at your 20s, maybe let's say those were the teens, and in your 20s, it's a different kind of desire that you want. More materialistic things probably roll in, maybe partying and lifestyle, those kind of things, desires come into play. And then 30s, maybe family and whatever, home purchases, whatever. And then 40 might be like, oh, I want more, like, your desires are different. You want to be on the beach, you want to like unwind, you're trying to get away from all those things. And like, life is really just a series of desires. And we're always chasing different carrots.
Yes, we want either a bigger carrot or we want a carrot of a different color that we've never had before, right? So you're either upping the dosage of that stimulant that you've already had, money, you know, women, whatever it is. Or you're just like, fuck, I had so much of that. I'm bored. Now I want that other thing. I want the new, right? I want to move out of the city now. I want to experience something different. Uh, I want to do a bigger prank because I've outgrown the last one. Now I'm a little bit more sophisticated now. I'm bored of that one because I've already done it. Let me come up with a better prank, a bigger prank, you know? And it just keeps fucking ballooning, you know? Um, the Buddhists have a quote, you know, you come up to your guru and you go, you know, their instruction is desire not to desire. That's like the big, you know, spiritual Buddhist fucking I guess mantra or goal, right? Desire not to desire, right? But then it gets tricky, as Alan Watts says, you know, if I desire not to desire, aren't I desiring to do that, right? So it's like an endless loop of this of this like human psyche that we're trapped in, and it's pretty funny. It's outrageous to think about how fucking simple of a creature we are, you know.
Okay, so
And
yeah, sorry, I'm jumping in. Continue, please.
no, please jump in. That's why actually your question is kind of fascinating, right? It was a really open-ended question. Do you live in the city or do you live outside of the city? Well, fuck. It brings up a lot of it fucks my brain up, right?
Yeah, and this is where um and I'm just gonna keep citing the podcast I listened to yesterday. I'm gonna send it to you because it was actually really interesting. It was conversation held between, let's just say, a life coach type person, um, or somebody that's like a innovator in the life coaching space, and a guru, to put it short. And lots of great stimulating questions from like the life coach person, and lots of interesting, like very like left on the spectrum kind of responses in terms of spirituality. And he had a great response to a very similar question, you know, the desire not to desire. And he put it this way, an example that was nice, and it had context. So let's say your destination is my house. You know, we're gonna catch up and you're gonna visit me. You're gonna get into your Ferrari and you're gonna drive over to my house, but you're gonna eventually have to get out of the Ferrari and realize that the Ferrari is just a piece of the puzzle to getting to the goal, which is like to my house. So we have to treat this desire as to not desire as the Ferrari. Like our minds are the Ferrari. We have to, of course, use our minds to get to the destination, and we have to transcend above the fact that I'm butchering this hard,
No, you're
but we
doing
have to
great.
transcend um, the fact that we're using our minds. It's like it, and it's an everlasting journey. Long story. In the end, he threw in some sprinkles that here and there, like I go into this deeper in my program, yada yada yada. So I don't have the full picture, but it seems that like you have to transcend above everything and get even more meta about this entire situation, and that like you're using your mind just to get through this journey, but the destination is not your mind. And my head was just like, what is going on?
Makes
It really
sense.
is that, like, yeah, it somewhat makes sense, but like you don't really get the full picture. And I think the beauty of it is that you never will, you know, but it's something that you have to just practice and like zoom out of all the time.
Yes. I think if you if you're someone that believes in an afterlife, then that what you just said makes a lot of sense because you're a vehicle to your next destination essentially. You're a soul trapped in this body that's going into your soul's going to fucking evaporate out of this world and go in somewhere else, right? And so the Ferrari metaphor would make perfect sense if you were to believe in that sort of scenario, which I'm fucking puzzled about, man. Like I'm not very religious, but I do get a little bit spiritual. And you watch these videos, interviews of people who died and then came back to life, and then they have this like crazy psychedelic story about, you know, their soul coming out of their body in the hospital room, and then traveling through some crazy garden, and then God's hand reaches out and it's like, don't be scared, you're safe here, come with me. You know, God, I put in sort of a metaphorical sense, right? Some sort of angel or being that they described pulled them through this, you know. And then in one particular case, the guy says, when the hand reached out, it said, oh, it's not your time yet, sort of thing. And then boom, he was kind of brought back to life, right? And he said that he had never felt so free and peaceful in that sort of dream reality that he was in. And when you hear countless stories of this sort of stuff happening, you start wondering about what happens after we leave this existence and this reality. You know, it messes my brain up to think about.
It does, because if you anchor yourself to a very strong idea of the afterlife, like that allows you, and I'm thinking on the extreme sense, like that allows you it gives you the permission to do crazy radical things.
Yes,
that's why when you think about radical, but pause. Like this wasn't in a very optimistic.
Okay.
I wasn't going in an optimistic direction. I'm thinking like the radical like Islamists, you know, that allows them the freedom to be like, I'm gonna go and just commit. I don't know the exact phrase, but they're gonna just, you know, do the suicide bombings in the aspect that they believe that they're gonna get some sort of bonus in the afterlife, right? Don't need to go too far into this, but that's the kind of level of thinking it can get you. And I think even the Japanese, like their culture is so ingrained in honor and whatnot that like they can do things like kamikaze, you know, like they believe in such a higher purpose. It gives them the permission to do outrageous things.
They were also just heavily on fucking meth and shit, you know. I'm
You say
sure
the Japanese, the opioids.
yeah, they were on meth, man. That whole.
Okay, I
But
really
yeah, I
need to
see
pee.
you have a strong point for sure. I totally
I need
see
to
it.
take a bathroom break. I'm so sorry, but
Oh,
I definitely want to chat about this. Can you just pause and I'll come back?
all right, we're back. Um, Dude, I have these thoughts constantly, lately especially about afterlife and you know, these sort of metaphysical principles and imaginations. Um, Alan Watts kind of got me thinking about it. I know I talk about him a lot, but he's sort of my vehicle into Hinduism and Buddhism, since I'm a white male and I can't read Sanskrit that well yet, but and you know, the Bhagavad Gita is pretty intense to read in English. It's not, I don't know, when I read Russian translations, I'm like, fuck, they got it so wrong, you know, and so that always pops into my mind. But he's got this he's got this saying that's kind of interesting. He goes, um, imagine going to sleep uh, and never waking up. Imagine waking up never having gone to sleep. You know, it's something that we think about as children, right? I mean, I used to think about it a lot when I was a kid. I'm like, I go to sleep and then it's just black. But sometimes I dream. Sometimes I have dreams. Do I live in like a psychedelic state? You know? And then I think about my birth and I go, what happened before that? Was there anything before that? I just woke up one day, right? And he kind of ends that rant on, you know, when people die, others are born, right? And so that all these like little tricky statements, like you got to be maybe a little bit aloof in the moment when you're listening to them, but they bring up some sort of interesting thoughts at times, you know, and they definitely trick my mind. And I think I have right now a healthy balance of just like playing with the ideas and then just pushing them away, you know, so that I don't become a fucking jihadist. But I do have fun mental exercises to ponder about. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, like putting it all together and then adding how that affects or putting some context behind all of this it drives a lot, like whatever you believe will drive a lot of your actions day to day. Like that's probably why a lot of religious people, like they're centered by their religion or their beliefs, right? And when we're thinking about what we're going to do and why we're going to do it, let's scratch that. Let's start from the beginning.
Okay.
So I was thinking about, like, dude, I'm having a huge brain fart right now.
Dude, you've been fucking killing me this podcast.
Dude, I'm having a huge brain
I'm like,
fart right now. Okay.
Jason's fucking awoken today.
I've been going through some awakenings. I've been
Well,
trying
that's
to.
talking through your voice, man, through your mouth.
Okay, so yeah, okay, so I want to circle back to the desires and how we outgrow our desires,
Okay.
right? Because let's just say, we're going through a spiritual awakening, and let's say you found some sort of religion. Like Bob has found this religion at the ripe age of 40, and he's devoting the rest of his life to it. It's another chapter of desires.
How so? So we're talking about like Bob's a born again or something like that? And
Bob said people that are born again, or just like any faculty that you subscribe to, it feeds a new desire. So just like Watt said, like you're going to end up desiring not the desire. That is the ultimate desire, but it still is a desire.
yes.
Let's just say when I'm arbitrary numbers, I'm generalizing everything, 0 to 10, your desire is a Honda Civic. And then 10 to 20, your desire is a 3-wheeled tricycle, whatever it is. And then 20 to 30, it's a Ferrari. Doesn't matter what vehicle, I just want to clarify, but it is a different one, right? Until
Wait,
at some point.
0 to 10, it's a tricycle. 10 to 20, it's a Civic, right?
It doesn't matter. I flip those around just to show that, like, they're just categorically different desires. And from my 10 to 20, it's not going to be the same as your 10 to 20. Like I might want like a Kawasaki, motorbike. You might want a jet ski. Doesn't matter. But it's just your desires are different. And the ultimate end desire is the desire not to desire. But you're going to go through a whole slew of fucking desires until you finally end it. Because if you go and finally desire not to desire, truly, there is no greater desire. You're not going to want another Ferrari after that. That's what I'm wrapping my head around, that like they tell you, like these gurus or whatever, these figures of spirituality, they tell you that this is the ultimate desire not to desire, because it eradicates all other desires.
Yes, but they also tell you that life is a dance and that you should play. Like you mentioned us being really happy when we pulled pranks as kids, Those are really happy moments when we would, ring a doorbell, run away. It's such a simple pleasure. It's so harmless, but we were happy. And we were making a little bit of trouble back then. We were ruffling feathers and we were playing. And in our adulthood, we often forget to play. We often get into jobs or careers or like life routines where it's just fucking mundane work, and the play is gone. And if life is just the dance, then shouldn't we find something that makes us fucking laugh like we were as kids and kind of soak our hearts in that? Fuck. Sorry, I had to plug.
And here's the interesting part. If we were...
I'll cut that part out.
This is like the plight or the such a like first world problem. This is nothing like it is, but it's an interesting one because like it's still a large subset of humanity. Like people who are first world, they have first world problems. And here's the interesting part: if we were just struggling, we were born like we weren't so lucky to be born into where we are right now. Like think about Vancouver, like literally one of the top 5 cities in the world year after year in terms of like safety, everything, beautiful, access. It's just a great city to be in. But if we were born in Bangladesh in like the slums or whatnot, like these issues wouldn't even be a problem. Like all these things about being happy, like you do what you need to do there, and that provides you joy. Like the basic necessities, that the Maslow's like hierarchy of needs, like those get stripped down to the bare minimum. Like, and that those desires, if you can satiate those desires of putting a roof over your head, having food, and just not dying, or even if you're thinking like a caveman and not being hunted, or like that's what's going to make you happy. But I'm saying as we grow as a civilization, like our desires just they're going to keep coming. That's why like the desires of a Stone Age like person is going to be different than a person in the Iron Age. But now we're in like well, I don't know what age, or like the internet age or data age. Like our desires are just going to keep compounding at a rate that's like this. And the first world, like we're just dealing with these problems. Like these are new problems. Of course, if a meteor hits the world and we're just back in the fucking Stone Ages, like our desires are just going to be completely different. Like catastrophically, if like we have a nuclear war, we're going to have different desires. But just because like we're pioneers, like everything's kind of new. We don't know, our brains don't know how to handle all these new desires. That's why, regardless of like what the world throws at you, if you desire not to desire, and you reach that pinnacle of desire, it doesn't matter what era you're in. You're just zen, or you're so meta.
Yeah, I don't want to look at desires as bad either, though. You know what I mean? They're there for a reason. We have sexual desires because, you know, our ultimate life purpose is to procreate, right? And it's there for a reason. You can really abuse that desire. You can become a priest and vow not to you know, you're going to pretend like you don't desire it because you're above it and you're meta, and then you start, you know, raping little boys, right? So it's a tricky one because they're there for health reasons, for reasons to keep turning the circle around, for the snake to keep eating its own tail, right? But you can eat fucking so much of the tail that you end up at your own neck. Or if you know, I don't know, I guess if you don't eat the tail, are you eating other tails, little boys' tails? I don't I don't know how I got there, but I just think that we can find healthy balances in in our desires. But yeah, like I don't think they're necessarily bad, right? We can't look at desires as negatives. Um, I don't know. This whole conversation makes me realize that I don't fucking know anything. I'm just like, I'm talking right now. I'm like, I'm hungry. I want food.
Yeah. Whenever we get spun off into this whole like, what is life?
But
It
this is
definitely.
where, you know, like because I'm fucking stumbling for words right now, and it just tells me that I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. I think I do when I'm listening to Alan Watts and I get all spiritual. I'm like, fuck, I think I know a few things, but I
Yeah.
really don't know anything. I know
Like
fucking
likewise,
fuck all.
likewise, likewise. All we're doing is trying to understand our piece in this puzzle.
Yes, and I think when we
So
start stumbling like this is when we kind of like learn something.
what you did is a great catalyst for that. I think you've uncovered a lot of finding. You've uncovered a lot of things about yourself during that week. Now, how are you going to act on them? Do you think you're going to stop, the indulgence in certain activities? Are you going to be on your phone less? Like, what are some actionable things you've taken away? Otherwise, it was just like,
Yeah, it was just an experiment. Well, I put, for example, I put an app on my phone that tells me how long I use my phone for. and it also shuts off particular apps after you set an X amount of time. Instagram, fucking 20 minutes a day for like you can set all your parameters, and then it'll literally shut the program off at that point. And then you kind of get alarmed, like, fuck, I've spent an hour and a half on my phone today. What the fuck am I doing, right? So there's that. I'm not going to be I'm not going to be as compulsive with my phone. Other things with art, the biggest ones are really affirmations, meditation, and just, man, the creating your own reality thing is just like, that's what I meditate on. I've really taken away from that. So that's what I'm going to do every morning, every night. Just positive affirmations. That's a really big one. If there's an engineer listening and I was in their place, I would wake up every morning and tell myself I'm the fucking best engineer that's ever lived. I'm going to create the craziest bridges or the whatever. I'm going to innovate the fuck out of rocket science or whatever the fuck your field is. I would meditate on just, I am the fucking killer of whatever type of engineering I'm doing. That's the type of affirmations I think that go a long way. So I'm part of this a bunch of like Facebook groups with other artists, and I just hear a lot of like bitching and complaining and like a lot of fucking weakness coming out of that group, because artists are these like delicate creatures, you can say, and a lot of the comments are like, oh, I can't sell my art either because of my subject matter. No one's interested in it. Oh well. What a fucking bitch-ass limiting belief that is, man. What a fucking bitch-ass belief. Dude, there has been more grotesque, more disgusting, ugly, fucked up art that sold for millions. And you're sitting here, well, no one's into it, so I'm just going to accept that. I don't know why I did that voice.
Yeah, why did you have voice?
That's what I hear. I just hear this like bitch-ass voice. I don't know why. It just came out. But that is a limiting belief. And if you believe that, well, fuck, no one's going to buy your art, right? And that applies across the board for everything. So those positive affirmations, those limiting beliefs, I really took away because, like I said, when you quiet the mind, it gets fucking loud in there suddenly. And you hear a lot of really important things. You hear a lot of patterns of thought. And I've noted down a lot of them. I took a lot of notes, wrote a lot of journals, and those were some of my biggest takeaways. Were just finally like really, really hearing myself think. It really got loud in there and really uncomfortable, and I felt quite a bit of growth happen near the end of that week. So I think I will take a lot away from it. I'm going to do a lot of quiet time as well. So I haven't spoken in a week, so I'm like, let me fucking talk. But yeah, that's a big one for me, man.
I didn't know whether to place my bet on you wanting to just word vomit, or you just become so zen that you just don't have that much to say. But I'm surprised to see that you haven't swung to any extremity. You're either extreme points. Like you're kind of just like, you seem more centered, which is nice.
Yesterday, so I finished yesterday morning, right?
Yeah.
Yesterday, I wish we had the podcast yesterday because I felt zen as shit. I hung out with my friend. We went for brunch, and I was like, he would say something, and I would just take it in, and I'm like, we are wasting energy on this conversation right now. And I'm like, what you're saying, you don't need to think about. You have to think bigger picture. I was really just, and I would say like one sentence, and it would break his head.
Yeah.
Now I'm back to normal. Now I'm blabbering and fucking stuttering and trying to hear my own voice. Now I'm back to being a simpleton. So But I did swing to that to that kind of Zen, not talking very much sort of
Yeah.
spot. And
And
I'm
if you
back to
kept
me.
up with it, if you kept up with it, I think, or you can find that balance where you can tap into that Zen mode. The beauty of meditation and practicing it, I think, is it gives you access to your brain in times of stress. So hopefully, like you now know how to tap into that quiet mode. You know what I mean? You know how to handle it. For me, somebody who's like, I probably do have a lot of loud voices that I try to drown out with other stimuli. Um, I wouldn't know how to handle it without something like a retreat where I'm just completely facing the demons or facing the voices or the energies that are pulling me in at either direction. So I do think, like, yeah, doing it once a year, like twice a year, or for a longer time every single year is beautiful. I think I would want to try it. Um,
You should.
yeah,
I'm gonna do
I definitely
two
should.
2 weeks next time
2 weeks.
for sure, for sure. Um, I'm just gonna keep. I desire more now. I'm just gonna keep elevating it. I need a bigger injection. But yeah, facing the demons and all the voices. That's not a lot of people want to get into that uncomfortable zone. And my day 3 was just that. You know, and I like how you put it, and that we drown them out. And that's how I refer to when I talked about being numbed by alcohol, music, and stimuli and stupid videos. That's the other thing, man. We put so much garbage into our brains day to day. And I realize that because when it's quiet and you're doing like just mundane painting, you're painting just, let's say, one color over and over, right? And your mind starts kind of entertaining itself, right? And I start hearing like stupid sitcom voices or like a fail video or like a dumbass song just keep playing over and over and over because my brain diet was so shitty with enormous access to Instagram and YouTube, and that I allowed myself. You know, that's the other thing that I'm taking away is my brain diet. I'm not gonna click on those stupid videos. I don't need that in my head. I want to be really conscious of what goes into it, because when it gets quiet, that's the stuff you hear, and that's the stuff that makes up the fucking particles of your brain. You know, you keep listening to you keep watching, let's say, fail videos all day, right? Guess what your life is going to look like? Guess what you're going to be thinking about a lot, right? You're going to think about failure. You're going to think about stupid falls. You're going to laugh at other people when they fail, right? That's one wacky example. Um, and then you mix in like a bunch of dumbass videos into this pot, and that becomes your brain, right? Um, and fuck, it kind of got annoying. Like I had all these different YouTube voices, and yeah. So I want to get rid of the garbage. I want to be cognizant of what I put in, you know. And the other thing, man, like I turned my phone on, and I like couldn't wait for that rush of dopamine of like all the notifications. I turn it on, and I like just kind of itched for it, and I turn my phone on, and it goes like and all these like Instagram and all these messages on WhatsApp, and none of it mattered. There was not a single message, not a single group chat conversation, or like Instagram fucking all the likes. None of it mattered. All of it was empty. Literally 100% of every notification that I got was empty. Fucking empty, dude. Like, and I was desiring it all week. I couldn't wait to, oh, my phone's gonna blow. You know what I mean? I'm gonna get this rush. Emptiness. We are chasing emptiness every fucking day. When our phone gets the little green or red light up here, and we go, oh my God, who's that? Let me look at that. It's nothing. It's not important. You know. Sorry, I'm getting passionate about this because it's been fucking my brain up, and I only realized it now.
Yeah. Well, okay. Like on the other end of this conversation is somebody who has already cut out social media
You have, yeah.
entirely, right? So like I'm like it's kind of snowing outside. I'm months into this whole no social media thing, and it's gotten to a point where like I've realized that it was so toxic that I'm scared to get back on the platform. Like I have just no desire. But I know for a fact, if I'm ever getting social media again, it's gonna provide a very hedonistic high. Just like once in a while, you'd want to go to a restaurant, eat a little bit, have a nice drink or like eat a little bit of fatty foods and whatnot. Things are just unhealthy for you. But it's the spice of life. Some people will say like, what is life without these little accoutrements? Like, what is life without these pleasures?
Mm-hmm.
How European of me. It's like, what are you doing if you're just not like you're not living? What's the point of living if you're not enjoying it? Hey, what are you doing, man? Right? Like social media is like it's like the little whipping cream on top of your life. You could do all these little things. All you need to do is film it a bit, put it up, and you get like an extra bonus. It's like you're already doing all these things. If you just put a little bit more effort into making it consumable for others, then you get the benefit of this extra dopamine.
There's nothing wrong with it, I think, as long as you're not abusing it. There's nothing wrong with feeling a little bit of good. You know what I mean? As long as, well, here's where the trouble comes in, is when that hedonism turns into you using, face editing apps, right? And then you're getting a like based on a photo that doesn't represent who you actually appear to be, right? That fucks up brains. That turns into suicide. What's that documentary I think you and I both watched? It's on Netflix, and it somewhat inspired my silent retreat and turning my phone off.
Social Dilemma?
Social Dilemma. These guys are the guys that are creating these platforms and the way that they work. Like they're getting addicted themselves, right? It's like this whole machine is like a self-sabotage to put money in someone's pockets. You know what I mean? But they're fucking their own selves up. It's like a modern day cigarette in a way. You know what I mean? Our phone is a modern day cigarette. Yeah.
Hey, dude, I actually like that. I don't think I've
I
heard that
like it.
before. No, it's like it is like a mental cigarette because people have cigarette breaks or whatnot, and then you would have phone breaks. Back then you might have like a newspaper break where you just jamming. Like, even the news, like I think since the dawn of like content and information, we as humans have just accelerated how much content we can consume, but we have not accelerated our brain's ability to handle that content. Like if you think about the news,
Mhm.
propaganda, centralizing everything, and just if you watch the news, have you watched like you don't have cable, but when I visit my family and I'm like watching like TV with them, or we're just sitting around the living area, and like they have cable, so we're watching the news, and every like headline after headline, it's always going to be something that grabs your attention, like how many cases of coronavirus are homicide, um, black bear terrorizes North Vancouver home because garbage left out. Shit like that. Like you just get these like very tantalizing, scandalous like pieces of information. And then you cut the cable and you realize that all these things are still happening. You're just not aware of them anymore.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you do when you cut the cable of social media. Like all these things, like you said, your phone, all these notifications still exist, but you just cut the cable. Like they don't reach you anymore.
Right. Can you imagine if we could talk to our like, well, even yeah, if we could talk to like our great grandparents, let's say, and you could tell them that by clicking 10 buttons, by moving your finger 10 times onto a screen, within an hour you can have a prostitute, a delicious meal, a cleaner, literally everything that you need in order to fulfill almost any desire could arrive at the front door of your house. To be like, what? Like you just push a button and then you're like a rat in a cage that pushes the red button to get the little dopamine kick, or I don't know what they did, like cocaine water for some. And it's weird, man. And it's like a self-built cage, or it's not, or maybe we're in Plato's cave. I don't know. I thought a lot about Plato's cave on this thing, by the way.
In your retreat, you were in the cave. As humans, one of the biggest things that we deal with, like on a mental level, is instant gratification. We want it now. And the capacity for what we want and when we want it is we want more and faster. That's all that has ever been. We are like, if we're ants, you know, and I'm paraphrasing what Joe Rogan says, if we're ants, all we want to build bigger like ant hills and faster. Like that's all we've been doing. If you really zoom out and look at man from the beginning of time, it's been exponential lately, but all we've been trying to do is get gratification faster and more of it. And what we're doing, what all the tech companies are doing, like if you think about it, it's brain drain. The smartest minds in the world go where the most capital is allocated. I believe that because we've just built this whole like capitalism is this engine, you know, the brains want to go to where they can make the most impact and make the most money. But impact is like, what is the impact that all these people are trying to build? They're trying to get, like the smartest brains in the fucking world are trying to get more things to you faster. These software engineers in Silicon Valley, they are as smart as fuck. And all they're doing every day is getting more Facebook information to you faster in different ways, mobile, desktop, whatever, messenger, everything. The engineers at DoorDash, Uber, they're trying to get cars to you, like transportation to you faster and more of it. They're trying to get food to you faster and more of it.
Yes, sir.
Everything. And if you look at the gap, like 200,
more,
like
more, better, faster,
more. In the year 2050, I think the only like the big goals of North America, and I should say the whole world, is to get more faster. 2020 until 2050, we're just closing the gap of instant gratification. How fast can we get gratification to ourselves? That's it.
Dude,
that's all it is.
That's fucked.
If we can somehow like, you know, like get teleportation in the game, if we can get VR fucking fully dialed in, we can get Neuralink, all these things that like just send the pleasure straight to our brain or whatever we want to our brain. Yeah.
So you're like, now what I'm picturing is, instead of like, if you look at the evolution of gratification, it's like 1900s, you would have to go to a place, right? Leave your house, travel by foot or by cart. It would take you a while, and then you would get it, right?
Yeah.
Now it's
go
like
to the opera or something.
You push a button, comes to your house. Wow, right? Amazon delivery, Uber Eats, whatever. Now, the next step is you're sitting in, you know, the Matrix, in that scene where there are just those batteries and they're in those pods.
Yeah.
That's like the next step, really. You know, it kind of fucks your brain up.
3D printing. Like people just glance over the fact that like one day, because like technology in the beginning, the first computer was like millions of dollars. Like you just couldn't buy a computer.
Massive.
But once it becomes fully commercialized and like fully down the pipeline of like where it can cost $50, like it is to print paper. One day, like when we get to 3D print anything we want, like that's instant gratification. You want a piece of anything, you just prints.
Fucked, man. Fucked. And we're like doing it to ourselves in a sense.
What you said about this whole machine that like is feeding into this, that's exactly what it is. We've built systems where we reward who people who can find innovation to bring more instant gratification.
Yes.
AI, think about it. So many smart people are raising incredible amounts of money to solve problems that allow you. How's this?
Perfect. Jason switched headphones. You're saying more, faster, and we're in a weird cycle here. We're in a self-manifested Plato's cave in a sense, you know. And the only thing that I can grab onto is work and career and purpose. You know, that's the only thing. So the Nazis, let's go back there. At the front of their concentration camps, they would have a propaganda sign, right? It said Arbeit macht frei or something like that. My German's, you know, I'm Jewish, so it's kind of weak. But it means something like work sets you free. And them being the Nazis, you know, you want to shit on them, but there's something about that phrase that it works well, I think, as propaganda to house your slaves in, right? Because it kind of associates to, if you work hard, we won't kill you, right? And B, there's a more spiritual and higher meaning to that statement, is that having strong purpose and working hard will set you free at the end of it. And that's sort of how I see my life. Like it depresses me to think about life ending and I didn't fulfill my purpose to its greatest potential. You know, there's that mental exercise that, you know, David Goggins plays and other people play in their mind of dying, going to heaven, and then God giving you a write-up of what your life could have been if you pushed to the very maximum, right? And he's like, for Goggins, you know, he's a crazy fuck. He's like, I want the scripture that he gives me, and I want to destroy. I want my life to be even better than what he had written out for me. You know what I mean? But that's something that depresses me, and I always grab on to purpose as, I don't know, perhaps it's an escape from the Plato's cave that we're living in, or perhaps not. Perhaps it is the North Star that I need to look at. I don't know. What are your thoughts on
Chop wood, carry water.
that?
You know, just
You had to give me a
you're not
confused answer, right?
you're not doing anything. You're just chopping when you're carrying water. Everything more and anything less is nothing.
We are ants in a colony.
You're just chopping wood, you're carrying water.
Does that depress you, or does that?
But here's the thing. Any more, any less is nothing.
What do you mean?
It'll only depress you if you think that there's more to it.
Ah, so if I may add a Confucius saying, he says life is simple, except we make it overly complicated and difficult. But at the end, life is simple. We just want to make it feel like there's something more to it, right? Was that where you're getting into?
Yeah, like if you think about okay.
All right,
Okay,
it's
like
getting serious now. Okay.
yeah, even this conversation itself, of course, like we're putting ourselves in the position where we are really just like we're poking holes in our own psyche and just like challenging kind of what we think. And like we're not gurus, we're still discovering things and learning, and this is an example of us wanting to learn more. If we were to turn this all off, I don't think we can because we've already been on this journey for many years where we're just like we're trying to learn more. We're just students of life. But if we were to turn this all off and just conclude that in a very firm, concrete belief, if tomorrow literally we just write out a belief and just 100% believe in it, life would be a lot simpler. And there's a good chance that it would probably be a lot happier too. If you simplify things to like, let's say family or whatever you believe in, it just simplifies everything.
So if in your example, let me understand it. If you write out a belief, I believe in A, B, and C, morality, like Ten Commandments. Let's say I'm a Christian or Catholic, and I subscribe to that. Then you think that one would be happier in just like boxing in the reality of the scripture.
Yeah. So, okay, I'll give you an example that's awesome. But I also I actually heard this last week. One good decision can prevent you from making 1,000 bad ones.
Yes.
Okay, so if you make one good decision, it can save you the difficulties of making 1,000 future bad decisions or tough decisions. So if you make the right decision, or if you make a decision today that's and you stick to it, it could save you from multiple other decisions in the future. And I'm repeating it because like I'm finding different ways to look at these scenarios. Okay. The first one is if you make the decision to never touch another drink or cigarette in your life, it's going to save you from a lifetime of other micro decisions or smaller scale decisions. Example, if you decide that you abstain from alcohol, next week you're not going to think about whether or not you're going to go to a bar. You're not going to think about which drink you're going to order that night. You're not going to think about how much you should be drinking. You're not going to be thinking about if you should drive or Uber. It simplifies everything. You just simply don't drink. Okay. Yes. And this is also for why like eunuchs or priests or people who just they devote themselves to a life of let's say no sexual pleasure or procreation. It simplifies every other decision they have in life. And this is something where I never really understood, like, hey, you can be a priest and have a family, why not? But what they're doing is they're making that one decision that saves them from all other decisions in the future that might get in the way of their purpose.
Yes, but what about FOMO, Jason? What about FOMO?
But here we go. Let's try to like unfold that. If you make that decision, you stick to it. Just like you've made the decision as a straight man, you're never gonna like be gay. But if you're like curious and always open-minded to certain things, and you're like you fall under that bi category, it's gonna open up like a world of like decisions. But for you, how easy is it for you to be a straight guy?
But that's not a decision. That's something like that. I think is sort of decided for you.
Okay, but I'm using that as an example of like that's just your life, or like let's say you got into a horrible accident, knock on wood, or I get in a horrible accident, knock on wood, and I lose my legs. Like the decision, like not decision, but like the situation that I'm put in is I'm just never gonna be a walk. I'm just never gonna walk again.
Right. That one doesn't answer 1,000 questions though.
Okay, fine. But I'm still learning. I'm still learning about this. That probably wasn't the best.
The drinking was a great example, I think. And here is the counter to that. So yes, you don't have to think about the money spent or the bars you go to or the drink you'll order or how am I going to operate while I'm hungover, all those things. There's a million kind of cons or decisions that come, mental energy that comes with the decision to I am a drinker, right? Now, my counter to that is what about all the scenarios you miss out on and all the life experiences and the joys and the highs that come with it or that come with having sex, being a priest, or that come with, and by having sex, you could potentially create a family and all the joys and feelings and things that you're able to have, having not missed out on that. So sure, it saves you on 1,000 decisions you have to make, but it creates 1,000 opportunities.
Okay, yeah, what you said makes a lot of sense, and that comes with making that decision. It's what you're giving up, but staying to that decision will save you from. You might have that FOMO of all those things that are to come, but you're in a situation. If you commit to that decision, you're never gonna have to. Like you shouldn't even go there. Your brain shouldn't even go there. And it's like when you're committing, let's say you make the decision that you don't care about money and all you want to do is just like paint, right? And it's no longer about the money. Then every decision in the future is no longer about money or like selling your art for painting. Sorry, selling your painting for money. It's just about like the fact that you get to wake up and you get to paint. And I'm sure a lot of people live like that. Those people who move to the woods or whatever, they've made that one decision that like they just don't care about that stuff anymore. And it saves them for the fact that like they don't need to wake up and be like, oh fuck, should I do this hustle here to make a little bit of money so I can do this and do that? Like they don't have any of those decisions. Same as a priest. It gives them clarity. They don't care about the what ifs, like the future self or like the alternate reality or universe where they can get all these things. That is perpetuity. Like that shit always exists. You know, you could decide to just move to Thailand and live a very hedonistic lifestyle on a dime. You know, you could do that, right? Like there's nothing stopping you from fucking just sending it somewhere else.
Right.
But are you going to think about those things? Like whether it's Thailand, Bali, um, Moscow, you could like Boris could be anywhere all the time. You
Yes.
could be everywhere. But if you make that decision that I'm going to stay here, I'm going to do this, it should provide you clarity.
Yes.
But it's the lack of the affirmation of what this, like what you choose for yourself. It's a lack of confidence of what I or whoever choose for themselves that gives them that FOMO, that like that analysis paralysis, or the very introspective thinking.
Right. I think that we take a lot away from the positions that we're in life, and I think that we create this sort of reality in our minds of, well, for example, you and I moved to Toronto for 6 months, right? Had we not moved to Toronto for 6 months, had we spent those months in Vancouver, we would have been like, I'm glad I didn't go, perhaps, right? Just for the sake of it. I'm glad I didn't go. I got so much out of these last 6 months in Vancouver, right? And so the place that you're in life, you just like sometimes we inject meaning into it and we grab away from it, right? Let's say something kind of bad happens in our lives, right? You go, oh, you know what? Because of that tragedy, I learned this, and you know what I mean. So I could go to Thailand, I could go to Bali, I could go wherever, and after the 6 months of the travel there, I will just create like maybe not a false reality, but I'll make a dialogue for myself that says, that was good for this and this reason. Um, does that make no? I'm not making sense because I would have missed out on the trip. I would have missed out on the experiences, and now I'm going in circles. And this, can I say one more thing?
Of course.
It's sort of fuck. See, this is where I stumble on my own words because you spend a week in silence, and the entire week you're thinking about all these things you're missing out on, right? I didn't see my friends, I didn't talk to my family, da 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 da. But then after the weekends, you realize, like I said earlier, it was all the notifications, everything was empty, and I'm glad I spent my week in silence. It's like, fuck, man, we're such monkeys. We just create the dialogue of what we want to hear to ourselves sometimes. Am I making sense?
You
I
are,
know,
you are.
I know I'm running
In
in
a,
circles.
in a twisted way, like I resonate with what you're saying, and I think whoever ends up listening this far is
The
there's a
two,
good chance that they won't resonate with this. There's a good chance. So like we are confirming each other's biases, and there's a good chance if we bring on a third person. I think now is a good time. Let's bring on a third person and talk exactly about this. Because you and I, we definitely like we're like mirrors that are just bouncing off the same energy and the same frequency of because I think our paths are kind of aligned. So of course I'm going to be thinking very similar things, and we're just like we're extrapolating that energy into the greater like
yeah.
world
We
or like
also we
all
also don't know
the.
what the fuck we're talking about. We're just throwing shit at each other. We're
But
just
hey, it's fair. It's like we're allowing these things to come out. Like we're giving permission to to learn more. Because I'm genuinely sitting here like, hey, this is making me realize. Just like when your voices were quiet, you had like things going on in your head. Like I'm realizing now that hey, I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about.
hmm
And I'm like committed to learning more. I actually genuinely want to learn more. So it's okay. Like right now, we're definitely just bouncing a lot of the same energy to each other. There's going to be a third person, maybe in a conversation that changes the entire dynamic, and they're just like, "What the fuck are you guys on? Like, I don't think about this at all." You know, I get to
yeah.
wake up and I have clothes and I'm just happy. I'm like, "What's wrong with you? Why do you think about all these different things?" Desire. Boom. That's all
Just
it is.
try to
Because we
do
have
more.
these weird desires in our head that we want to fulfill, and they're like like they're chains to our psyche. Like, I'm like I'll be so like I'll just be upfront. Like I have these desires. I know they're probably causing me a lot of like trauma and like trouble to deal with. but I don't want to let go because I'm like, they're so desirable. You know what I mean? It's all I want. These goals or whatever that I set for myself, or this like vision of success is like, it is the the pinnacle of my existence.
But it's good as long as it aligns with your purpose, with your higher purpose. You know, you meet sometimes you meet people that are kind of weaselly and they're in not so great career paths and they're making money. Uh, you know, Tupac has that lyric. He's like, "I made a G today, but you made it in a sleazy way, selling crack to the kids." Like, yeah, you made some money, but you poisoned the earth. You poisoned your society, and inadvertently you poisoned yourself. Sure, you made $1,000, right? A lot of people fall into these like shitty careers where they're poisoning their environment. Sure, they're making a lot of fucking money doing it, but why are a lot of these people cokeheads? Why are a lot of these people in really poisonous lifestyles? You know, well, fucking tell you why, because they're spreading poison every day, right? So I think as long as the mountain you're climbing is to your higher purpose, and fuck, you should desire that mountain, and you should desire the fruits that you're going to eat on the journey up to it. I think that's, and as long as you're fucking, you know, at times skipping up the mountain and having fun and playing and dancing, then I think you're going there. You know, I think your third eye's open, and I think you're moving in the right direction.
But you're also just making these comments from a place of, I don't want to say judgment, but it's hard to make these comments without having some sort of judgment attached to it. Like we're judging what other people are doing and if we believe they're right or not. In their head, it's like it's a double-edged sword. Like, okay, um, let's say these crack, like these people who are selling crack or like selling drugs. Sure, because that's like, in all honesty, like they're just doing a net negative for the world. You know what I mean? But let's think about Facebook. Like double-edged sword. They're basically creating mental crack. You know, your people are on the phone. They're just becoming addicted to this new form of crack.
Mm-hmm.
And the other side is we're connecting people all over the world. We're allowing small businesses to reach audiences they've never reached people. You know, $1 on our platform can give you an ROI for your business that you've never gone, like you've never gone, and or you can reach out to that long lost uncle or you know father, or if you're an orphan, like you can we're connecting people.
It's a dream.
But it's a double-edged sword. It's like on the other flip side of things, you know, do we need these things? And we're actually like, think about the people, like I said, 2050, 2020, we're just closing that gap. It could be 2010, like 2100, it could be like 2200, whatever that is, that year where we finally hit like what fuck, like net neutrality. I don't know what that phrase is, but once we fucking close that gap and shit gets to us, boom, like that, we won't know how to handle it. But people who are building that future, they think they're probably doing the right thing.
Right.
They're
I
they're saying they're saying we want to get food to you faster because we want to support businesses. We want to offer them more opportunities to reach their customer, you know? And we want you as a consumer to be able to like save time so you can focus on other things that bring you joy. Like, you no longer have to go and get your own food. You can focus your efforts.
I think if we learned anything on this podcast, Jason, it's all way simpler than that. I think that everything that's happening right now is nature. You know, it might look unnatural when you look at a city from a airplane. It looks like fucking just evilness and like mold covering the crust of the earth. Or you look at these new technologies that may seem like they have a double-edged sword, and they're poisoning us. But if we just step away, if we just float outside of the earth and observe, right, like a god or an angel or an alien would, then it's literally what you would call a natural progression, right? Because it's naturally happening. We are humans. We're somehow put here. We're evolved here, and this is how we're fucking things up. And whether it's good or bad, we can't decide because we're looking from within. We're not looking from the outside in, right? And if you just keep fucking moving more out and more out of the earth, then we become this fucking atom that's in a fucking sea of other atoms, other stars, that probably make up another like larger being, and so maybe none of this even fucking matters, Jason. Maybe none of this matters.
That's the whole idea. Well, that's the whole idea of like your mind is just a vehicle. Like we're in this, yeah. Really, it's how dead simple is that? Like your desire not to desire, and your mind is a vehicle, yada yada. All these things that just break things down to its chop wood, carry water. That's all it is. We're just pieces of dust floating, in the universe.
Yeah. Well, I think it's safe to say we should end it on that, because we can't go past a piece of dust floating in the wind. I'm gonna continue floating on, Jason, and float some paint onto a canvas, and feel small and big at the same time. I'm gonna feel important and like a complete speck in this universe, all at the same time. But fuck, this was mind blowing and also very, very humbling at the same podcast.
I'm just confused right now. I'm just like, hey, like, you know what's like before we sign off, though? This conversation has been a result of my brain diet. I've been consuming all this like spiritualistic third eye, like what is life content. Like I'm no longer looking at the fail videos. I'm listening to these like what is life, what is purpose, and I'm spewing all this shit out before I can even digest it. Like half of the things I'm said, I'm confident I'm butchering and I'm just like rambling on. But it's like it's evidence that you are kind of what you consume. I've been consuming a whole lot of this shit.
Good, man.
Hey,
I love
whether or
that.
not it's good. Huh?
I love that. You know me, I'm like listening to Alan Watts for hours a day. Um, and the thing is, yeah, sure, we're butchering the shit out of the stuff we hear from the so-called leaders of the spiritual world, but maybe they're fucking butchering it. Maybe they don't know shit and they're spewing the wrong stuff. Maybe we have to come from a completely fresh and idiotic and like ignorant perspective about this whole thing, because we eventually could maybe come up with a new idea that way, instead of solely digesting information that we get. Maybe eat a little bit, but then silence yourself and fast for a while, and eat again and fast for a while to get that fresh perspective. I don't know what the answer is, Jason. I have no idea. But what I do hope is that a year from now, when we podcast about spirituality again, we sound a little bit less dumb. That's my only goal.
Hey, the desire to do that is pretty simple. I think
I just want to elevate things. I want to make things a bit better for next time. I want to desire more. I want a bigger kick. I'm a fucking monkey, Jason.
This one fucked with me.
Good.
I think we should stop recording now before we do too much any more damage. My brain is fucked.
The damage is done, Jason. All right, man. This was awesome. This was awesome. I love you. Thank you. This was we'll do it again. Let's get a guest on next time.
Yeah, let's get a guest. We need a third perspective.
Yeah, we need a third eye, buddy. We're blind.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, broski. Have a good day.
Signing off. Bye.
Bye.